All right, hey guys, back again. It is still Sunday, March 9th. It's 10:30 now. I wanted to do another video because these videos are only 20 minutes long. I use TradingView, but I wanted to touch base on some other stocks. I usually always talk about the same old, spiders, Qs, Bitcoin, sometimes gold and NatGas and whatnot, and then I talk about a couple of the mega caps. But I want to do a little bit more. I've been wanting to for the last couple of weeks. Before I dive into some of that other stuff, I wanted to show this monthly chart on the semiconductors. Okay, so you can see I have a triangle pattern here, triangle formation, right? From the pivot low in April of 24, touching the pivot low of September of 24, to the pivot low from last month. Okay, and last month, the last 2 months in the semiconductors, they put in, well, last month for sure was a topping tail. The month before that was almost a topping tail. I think it was meant to trick everybody. But you see, there's a triangle formation here basically, and a triangle formation, this trend line here. And now we have broken below on a monthly, all right? On a monthly chart, we have broken below. The month's not over yet, right? So if I go to a weekly, all right, it shows a little bit more, this triangle formation here. All right, it broke below the first trend line of support that I had. And now it's basically, teetering on this lower trend line. It closed below. So, we could get another move high, like a counter trend bounce. But I believe the trend ultimately is going lower. Okay, so we're now trending below the 20 and 50-day moving average on a weekly, but we haven't gotten to the 20-day moving average on a monthly. But I believe that this is going to head down closer to the 190 range, like I mentioned before. So that'll bring it down back to this low area right here, this pivot low from August, and maybe even lower to this pivot low here in April of last year. And then we'll see, if it continues to sell off further after that. So that's the semis. I touched on Palantir. I suspect Palantir put in a massive, and I mean massive, topping tail last month. Let me change this to an arrow, right? This is a huge topping tail. That is, to me, that is a huge signal that it's going lower. It's been fighting these last couple of weeks around the 80, 90-day range, but I really suspect this thing to fall back into the 40s. So we'll see what happens. On a daily chart, you can see the consolidation a lot better than you would see it on a weekly. The weekly is just getting started, so this can take a little while. But ultimately, I think this is, if it goes higher, it's not going to go much higher. I think it's going lower. So we'll see. If I ride this trend line up a little bit further, just like that, we could probably see it stall out in the mid 70s, just like I said in my last video. But once it breaks down below this trend line, it's going lower. Again, that's all based off of what the rest of the market does ultimately. I want to touch on NatGas because I mentioned many times in my other videos that natural gas trades opposite of tech. Whenever tech is pumping, NatGas gets killed, and that was the case for 2.5 years when big tech and the semiconductors were all going higher and higher and higher. NatGas was getting crushed all right here. Okay, but now you can see NatGas has made a strong move higher over the last 6-7 months, and it's on a monthly basis. It's trading above all three moving averages, the 20, the 50, and the 200-day moving averages. That's strong. Now it's coming into some resistance here, right? Just like tech is falling into support, but I think over the weeks and months to come, this is going to continue to consolidate and move higher. So on a weekly chart, you see that it's been, it had a nice initial move up higher, then it came back down, and it's been kind of edging its way back up kind of along this trend line, and it's really, trading, right around, if not below and above that trend line. It's sticking to that trend line, and I think it closed the week higher than the last several weeks. So it made a new high. It closed at a new high. This is very bullish. So I believe even if this falls back down a little bit and consolidates, it's going to continue to go higher. From here on out. So you can see that it had one leg up. Okay, well, this move up, and then another leg this way, and then it consolidated a little bit, and then now it's pumping up again. So these last few days have been going sideways, but this is a bullish move. So at least from 3.7 to 4.5, that's about 80 cents higher or so. So this is gonna move up 80 cents higher from here up to 4.90. So this is gonna work its way up to $5 pretty soon. All right, now if you look at a bigger time frame, you'll see that $5 has a lot more resistance, right? So right here, you see that 4.5 has a lot of resistance here, and then the $5 range, even more resistance. So, we'll get there slowly but surely as tech, I think, is going to continue to go lower. All right, so now let's talk about some other stocks that I've been, and again, this is not financial advice, guys. I'm not giving financial advice here. Don't trade off of anything that I tell you. This is this is what I am seeing in the charts. It's my technical analysis. This is what I'm, looking at, and my interpretation of what the charts are telling me. So I'm not a financial advisor by any means. Meta is one of the big names that had a huge run up, and it finally gave back a little bit. I think Meta is, if I look at a daily chart, I think Meta, it put in a bit of a bottoming tail Friday, but I still think this has lower to go. So if I count from 740 down to 646, 645, it's basically 95, $100. $100 from this high here at 688. I expect this to go to 588, 590, which it pretty much got there. I mean, it's just a little bit higher. 600, 601 was the low. I think 600 was, 661 cents was the low made on Friday. But I expect this to continue further, and we'll see, how this following week goes. So that's Meta. I talked about Palantir. Let's talk about Home Depot is a stock that I've been looking at. I actually put a short on this last week and took some profits already. So Home Depot has this head and shoulder pattern going. So it's a shoulder, head, shoulder. So if I want to draw a trend line from basically the shoulders, what happened here? Trend line. Come on. 1 second. This fucking delay in this computer. Excuse my language, guys. I'm sorry. Man, it's crazy delays. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my internet or if it's this software or if it's my computer. Too much shit going on in my computer. Anyway. All right, enough bitching. Trend line. Let's go. Come on. All right, so if I draw a line from this pivot low here to that pivot low, okay, you'll see. So this is my first shoulder right here. That's, what the hell just happened? All right. My lines are finally coming in. Good Lord. Load. Good Lord. It's friggin' bill. Such a delay. Good Lord. All right. So I had an original line set here from last week. So I kind of figured the head and shoulder was kind of pretty much straight. I just made a new one down here. It doesn't matter whether this was the neckline or this was the neckline. Either way, it closed below both trend lines. So again, as I was saying, here's the first shoulder, here's your head, here's your second shoulder, right? So this is the neckline, basically this pivot low on this red bar and this pivot low right here. right? And then the other pivot low was right here. Or again, you could kind of count this as the second pivot low, and this will be the third pivot low. So it traded, closed below the neckline. So once it closes below the neckline, that means it's basically a head and shoulders valid pattern. Now it could it could it could invalidate the pattern if it closes back above the neckline. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. Obviously, I'll stop out if it trades higher. I'm probably going to stop out if it trades above this neckline, because I think this neckline here is still, both of these necklines are still pretty good. All right, so I'd say if it closed back above 384, I'll probably stop out. All right. I mean, I already took some profits on this on Friday, because I placed a trade on Thursday. But basically, on a head and shoulder pattern, you basically check, you measure from the top, which is 439, let's call it 440, down to 383. All right, so 380 to 440, that's almost 60 bucks, $57 from below. When once it breaks this trend line, it's going to fall approximately $57, right? So that's that could basically take it down to 320 bucks or so, somewhere in there. So it's going to fall into this, somewhere in this area, this zone somewhere, right? So if I look at a weekly chart, that basically takes it to this yellow line. That's a 200-day moving average. Now, it's not gonna fall straight. Okay, nothing ever goes down straight line. There's going to be, some up and down movement, some choppiness and whatnot as it hits support. Every time as it continues to go further, it's going to hit support and bounce a little bit. But ultimately, it's going to break down to this, I believe, and go lower. Again, anything is subject to change. That's not a guarantee. Based on what happens overall with the economy and the markets, and what Trump is doing with the whole tariff thing. Last week I talked about 3M and UPS. So 3M was really consolidating on a daily basis to do a nice move higher, but last week there was so much selling going on that it really brought down pretty much most of the market. There was a lot of fear this past week, and bear with me while this chart comes up. If it ever comes up, good Lord, what the hell? Running out of time here. All right, so it made a move up basically from July of last year, and it consolidated all this whole 6 months or so sideways, right? And then it had a nice leg up higher in January, and then it consolidated sideways. And it's still good. It's still a strong pattern on a daily. It's still trading above that 50-day moving average, which is pretty good. It closed above the 50-day moving average, and it closed above the low on this red bar right here. So it's still a good pattern. I actually stopped out of this because it looked like, it fell. So it was going to make I was afraid it was going to break. I was afraid it was going to break below, far below this 50-day moving average and come back down into the 120, 130 area. But so far it's holding. But that doesn't mean that it's going to hold, because this could be the start of a leg lower, right? So I got out of 3M. UPS, I'm still holding. UPS has a really great chart. It basically made its way up to 120. I made a video last week. I said it was going to go up to 118, 119, and then up to 120, which it did on Friday, right? It had a nice strong move up the last 3 days of last week. But now you can see it basically touched resistance. So, and it's right at the 50-day moving average. So this, I would not be surprised to see a slight pullback, but then I expect another move higher. And then I think eventually it's going to work its way up to 130 points and possibly break out. All right. UPS has been getting crushed for the last couple of years, or at least a year. Let's see, yeah, since 21, the 22, the start of 22. This thing has been selling off, right? But it came into a huge support. I had trend lines here, but this freaking, there's such a lag on this. Nothing is popping up. But there's a huge trend line support coming from this pivot low here to that pivot low, and you can see the 200-day moving average is right there. So that's a good sign. I think it's gonna, eventually, little by little, work its way up to the 130, 140 area, and then probably break out after that because it's sitting on top of a lot of support here. All right. American Express had a lot of its financials, were pretty strong, but then they broke down quite a bit with the rest of the market significantly this past week, right? So this came into the 50-day moving average, and we'll see what happens with financials. This has, it's not bad, but if this breaks down like NASDAQ, it's gonna fall further. I mean, this has had a huge run, just like the Qs and the spiders. The financials really have had a huge run, since COVID. There was so much stimulus, but yeah, this had a huge sell-off this week. So we'll see where that goes. BABA's doing great. China stocks are doing well. In fact, pretty much all of the other global stock markets are doing better. I don't really get into global markets, but China's doing well, as the United States market is. At least the tech stocks are falling. So we'll see. I mean, this had a huge run up. I wouldn't be surprised to see it chop a little bit sideways or come back down a little bit and retest some lows, maybe come back down into the mid 120s or so, and then make a way higher. SOFI. Let's talk about SOFI. We're almost done here with the 20 minutes. SOFI, I thought was gonna go higher, but just like the rest of the financials, they got beat up these last few weeks, so it's getting pounded as well. You can see here on a monthly chart pattern, it's come back down to some support, but I think it's going to make its way lower. If you take a measure from at least from this high right here, 17.26, down to the low right here at 14, there was some consolidation here, right? So 17 down to 14, that's about $3. So $3 from here, from 15 bucks, brings it down to 12. But I think it's got further to go, because if I look at a daily chart, or even on the weekly chart, I could have measured it on the weekly chart, but I still suspect this to go lower, right? So if I measure from the top here, the recent high was 1840. If I measure from 1840 down to this low, that's 1355. So about $5. $5 from this next high. All right, that brings it down to the $10 range. So ultimately, if the markets continue to go lower, I think this is probably going to head back down there. Could bounce up again into the $13 range. The markets have been up and down. There's been a lot of wide-ranging intraday movement, and this has been one of them. But this also kind of shows a bit of a, I don't know, it's not a very good head and shoulder. I don't know if this is head. All right, let's see here. Head, shoulder, right here, and then head. I don't know. We'll see. This is not as good as the Home Depot head and shoulder pattern, but nonetheless, I suspect this is going to go lower. All right, guys, I'm almost out of time again. Yeah, 20 minutes goes by quick. Hope you guys like what I'm giving you. Please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Take care. All right. Have a great weekend. Good luck this week. Again, this is not financial advice. Do not trade on this. If it helps you, great. But it's a very, very scary market, very risky, and it's very tricky. So, just this is my interpretation. All right. Take care, guys.